Okay, so in this week's lesson, we're going to continue one we started a few weeks ago, which ended up being a very popular lesson on blues rhythm. And so that lesson was, I called it Upgrade Your Blues Rhythm. And I showed you how to take your standard 1-4-5, like 3-chord blues kind of shuffle thing, and make it sound more interesting. So you're not just sort of playing the same old thing. And I used to be sort of amazed when I would hear guitar players doing that. They'd play like the 2-5-1 when they went to the 4-chord, and then a sharp diminished 7 back to the 1, all that kind of cool jazzy stuff. I showed you how you can do that in that video. So make sure you watch that video. It's a prerequisite to this one. I'm going to be referring back to it quite a bit as we kind of get into this, or talking about things that may go over your head, and it'd all be discussed in that video. So anyway, in this video, I'm going to show you how you can overlay that concept on top of a standard 1-4-5. So if you've got a jam track that's doing this, or you're playing along with a buddy, or you're playing in a band or whatever, and somebody probably will be doing that, you don't have to do that. You can throw in all your little jazzy extra chords on top of that, and it's going to fit perfectly. So that's what we're going to talk about in this lesson. How do you make it fit? How do you make that concept fit over the other thing? And I had a lot of questions about that, so I'm going to cover that in this video. So I have some extra materials that come with this. I've wrote a little composition that has everything we're going to talk through in this video, and it goes through the cycle 2 times. So there's a jam track for that, there's a tablature for that, and then I made an extra part 2 video that goes through these chord voicings we're going to look at and how you play them in a different spot on the neck. So if you want the extra materials for this lesson, you can get those by going to activemelody.com and doing a search for ML126. Okay, so we're going to be in the key of A, and remember to check out ML125. That is our prerequisite for this lesson. And in that video, at least a part of it, one of the concepts I talked about was when you're going from your 1 chord to your 4 chord, and we're playing off of this E shape, for example, you can find the 2 sort of connected in that same area. So this is my A chord using the E shape. This is my D9. Which has kind of a nice jazzy sound, but they're both connected off of this 5th fret. And so that was discussed in that previous video. But to get to that D9, I can play its 2-5-1. Not the 2-5-1 for the key of the song, but for the D. So I could play my E minor, and then I could play this substitute for my 5, which I talked about in that other video, and then the D. And so that substitute is a diminished 7 chord. So I can play 2-5-1 basically. And then to get from my D back to the A, from my 4 chord back to the 1 chord, I can play the 4 chord, its sharp diminished 7, same chord, and then back to my 1. And when I say same chord, I can take that shape and move it 3 frets this way or that way infinitely up the neck and still be making that same chord. So it's a really cool concept. So that's the first thing we're going to talk about, is we're going to play that over a jam track, and I'm going to show you how you can fit this in. And some of that has to do with timing. You need to know when to start that 2-5-1 to make it fit. And one other little technique that I'm going to throw in is when we go to the 4 chord, the D, I'm going to throw in this little embellishment. Look at that. 1 finger, 7th fret, 5th fret, we're playing strings 1, 2, and 3. And that sound, that would be like my D6, the sound of my D6, and that would be the sound of my D9. When you hear that over this, which is what the jam track's going to be doing, so it's got the bass playing the D note, and it's got the rhythm guitar doing the D stuff, and I play this, even though it's a minor triad, it's going to sound like a D6. It's going to color it like a D6, and this will be like a D9, like we just talked about. There's the D9 chord. Look at those top 3 strings. You can see where that's coming from. And here's a quick, easy way to remember that. Look at your D chord using the A shape. Look at where your 2 fingers are, 5th fret, 7th fret, 7th fret, 5th fret. Okay, so now you can just sort of file that away as to how to get to that. Okay, so before I turn on the jam track and demonstrate this, that 2-5-1 that I'm talking about, that gets me from my 1 chord to the 4 chord, so the 2-5-1 of my 4 chord, that starts at the beginning of my 4th measure. Let me just count that out and show you what I'm talking about. So we have 1, 2, 3, here it comes, 4. So right at the beginning of the 4th measure, I start my E minor, then I go to my diminished 7 chord, which is my 1 sharp diminished 7, and then to my D. So we have 2, 5 acting as the 5, and then 1. And so that's when it happens though. It's at the beginning of the 4th measure. Okay, so this is our A, 2nd measure right here, 3rd measure. Now watch this right at the start of the 4th. Notice that was the 2-5-1. So right at the start of the 4th measure, when you're playing just a 12-bar blues, that's where you start the 2-5-1. Okay, so this is where the song would be over the 5 chord. We're gonna skip these chords for now. And right now, let's just focus on getting from the 1 chord to the 4 chord and back to the 1 chord. Okay, here's the reset. Here's our A. 1, 2, 3. Here it is right here. There's my 4 chord. There's my 4 sharp diminished 7. Back to my 1 chord. Okay? Let's do it again, but this time we're going to add in that 6 to the 9 chord as well, just so you can hear all of this stuff with the jam track. So here we go. All right, here we go. This is my A. Here we go. Six to the 9. Sharp diminished 7. Isn't that cool? All right, so now let's talk about what to do over the 5 chord. So the 5 chord in this case would be an E, and so the jam track is just going to be doing this. And so over that, I'm going to play the 2-5-1, and 1 being the key of the song, or the A. So it'd be the 2, which would be like my B minor, and then the 5, which would be my E7. Actually, we're not going to play the 5. We could play the 5, but I'm going to play the 5 sharp diminished 7, which is this. E sharp diminished 7, just to give it a sort of a jazzy sound. And I explained that in that previous video, so you can check that out. So we have our 2, 5, resolving back to the 1. Now, when do I start that? Well, I would start that exactly when I would play my 5 chord. And so I think that, yeah, that's in measure 9. So once you get to the 9th bar of a 12-bar blues, that's where you would go to your E. Instead of me playing an E, I'm going to play a B minor though, and then I'm going to play that E sharp diminished 7, and then I'm going to go to my 1. Now when I demonstrate this over the jam track, I'll be playing the chords, but I could also arpeggiate. In fact, I'll do that. I'll just show you what it sounds like. So if I'm playing a lead, I can use these chords as well. So I could play. You can hear that sound of the 2-5-1. Let's listen to it with a jam track. All right, let's piece it all together. So here's my A. Let's do the 2-5-1 of the 4 chord. 6 to the 9. 4 sharp diminished 7. Back to my 1. I can just do minor pentatonic. Here's the 5 chord. But I played the 2. 5 sharp diminished 7. Back to the 1. Let me do it without talking, so let's just listen to it. All right, so are you starting to understand what's happening here? That jam track was was just this. I don't know if you could really hear it because I was playing and talking over it, but that's all it was. Just 1, 4, 5, but on top of that, we were layering in all this jazzy stuff. There's my 2, 5, 1, and it's just so cool. Now in the part 2 video, I'm gonna show you how to take that same idea, same jam track, but we're gonna play the 1 up here, and then I'm gonna show you how to do the 2, 5, 1 up here. We're gonna do the 4 minor, that's just another technique, and then back to the 1. So anyway, that'll be covered in the part 2 video, where I'll just kind of go over that. And remember, I've got the whole thing tabbed out with the MP3 jam track, so you can practice playing all of this. The key to this is just getting the timing right. Make sure that you count it out if you're a counter. I mean, I know not all of us are. Actually, ultimately, you want to feel it out, but know when to get to that 4 chord. You start it at the beginning of the 4th measure. That's what you're going to have to be listening for. So let me leave you with the little composition of everything we've talked through. And remember, you can have the tab and the jam track for that. Oh, and leave a comment below and let me know if this has been helpful for you. I always like reading that, or if there's been any confusion, leave that as well. I'll try and clear it up. All right, we'll see you in the next video.